Yesterday, you guys got to see who I thought were some of the most underrated prospects in this draft class. Today, we're going to be talking about who I think some of the most overrated draft prospects are. Now, like the last one, we're going off the consensus big board on Mock Draft Database. So you guys can go and see kind of where they have the rankings. That's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about players that I'm not the highest on. Not that these players are bad. Let me preface by saying that because I know a lot of people are going to say, you see the thumbnail, oh, this player is not bad. I don't think any of these players are bad players. I think they're overvalued based on where their current draft position is according to the database. But if you guys are new to this channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. So much draft content coming over the next few days. So stay tuned for that. I am so excited about it. Still deciding if I want to go live or not, but you guys can let me know down below if you want me to go live during the draft. But let's start it off with the quarterback position. Now, this is the one exception to the rule, and it is going to be the most overrated quarterback in this class to me is J.J. McCarthy. Not for where they have him as on their quarterback rankings. They've got him as QB4, which is where I have him. It's the gap between the consensus and where I'm at. They have him as the number 7 player in the draft class. I've got him as the number 25 player in the draft class. J.J. McCarthy is a first-round caliber player to me. I think he's got a lot of tools. I think he's underrated to a certain extent, but I think he's overrated to another. This is a guy who is not the biggest quarterback in the world, doesn't have the most elite arm. I think he's got a good arm. He's got good arm talent. He's pretty accurate. We really just don't really know what we're getting with him. You watch the pro day, you see upside with him, but not a lot of people know if he's going to be a starting quarterback. I don't think he's the 7th best player in this class. I think he's got the arm. He's got the accuracy. He's got some incredible ball placement. But I think there are some questions about his frame, maybe the offense he came from, because we didn't get to see him a lot, made some ill-timed throws especially in 2022, definitely improved in 2023. But McCarthy's a good quarterback. I don't think he's this elite talent at the quarterback position that's a top 10 player in this class. I think he's number 25. Now we're going to continue with a Michigan player. I think Blake Corum is one of the more overvalued running backs. Now, when we talk about this, he's my number 7 running back. I think Blake Corum is going to probably be one of the first guys off the board at this position. And I do get it to a certain extent. But at the same time, I think he's a little overvalued. When you look at the age, you look at the workload that he had in school, you look at the injury history, Blake Corum is a player that I think is being overvalued by teams. Running backs don't last very long in the NFL. And that's my big concern. He doesn't also have the craziest top-end speed in the world. He's got good jukes. He's got one of the best jump cuts I've seen coming out of the collegiate level. But I do think that this workload is going to really hurt him, and it could cause him to have a shorter NFL career. Don't also think he has a lot as a receiver. That was something that I just didn't love about him. The receiving upside wasn't there with me for Blake Corum. And so I think he could be a fine running back, but I don't think he's this elite top 10 back that some Michigan fans seem to think. I think he's one of those players who's going to have an elite college career, but his NFL career is never going to be that. So I've got him as the most overrated back in the class. At the receiver position, I've got Brendan Rice from USC, a guy that after the combine, after the Senior Bowl, really shot his draft stock up. And I never understood it. He's my number 23 receiver in the class. He's the consensus number 20. So the gap isn't that big. It's a loaded receiver class. Some of the talk, though, about him being similar to Pittman, I think the only similarities there are that they're big receivers from USC. Brendan Rice is not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the best separator in the world. What he does have is physicality, and I think that's all he has. He is one of the most physical receivers in this draft class. You throw it up, Brendan Rice is probably going to come down with it. That's what you like about Brendan Rice, but I don't think that's even an elite receiver. I've seen some people say he's this year's Puka Nacua, and I don't even think it's close. I think Brendan Rice has some upside here to be a great contested catch guy. Maybe you throw him in there as a possession guy, but he's not going to win down the field consistently. He's not the most amazing route runner in the world. And I think those are two very important characteristics for a receiver to have. And Brendan Rice just doesn't have that for me. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's a wide receiver 3 on a team. I've got him as the most overrated receiver in the class. At tight end, a big gap here. Jaheim Bell, the number 7 tight end, I think he's the number 11 tight end in this class. I never really jumped on the Jaheim Bell train. Even at South Carolina last year, there were some things that you could see. You could see some potential with the way they used him out of the backfield. And I think that's it. He's an okay receiver. He's an okay, I guess, I mean, that's really it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Jaheim Bell. He's at number 11 because I think the tight end class is that bad. If he could be lower, he would be. I just don't really see it with him, to be completely honest. He's not a good blocker. He's good after the catch in space, but he's not a great route runner, not a great separator at the tight end position. So what is he? He's too big to play receiver. He's too small to play tight end. Some people have talked about him being like a fullback hybrid. That's fine, but if I want that, I'm getting Ben Sinnott, who I think is better at everything on the field than Jaheim Bell. I just don't really see it with him. I don't know where he's going to go. I think he's probably going to be overdrafted due to his athleticism. And I think it could come back to hurt him because I think he's lacking a lot of important tools for a tight end. I think he's the most overrated tight end in the class. At the tackle position, it's Kingsley Suamataia, a guy who I had around that number 7, 8 spot. And then the more you see, the more I just don't see it with him at all. He is a guy that just really, really, I don't even know. He's athletic, which I really like. He's just really raw. He doesn't do very well against stunts and blitzes, doesn't do a good job as a help blocker, got beat way too many times. I would move him to guard at the next level in hopes that he doesn't get beat outside because that was a major concern with him. His footwork is a bit choppy at times. I think he's just, the athleticism is there. I would not take this guy until the 3rd or 4th round. I genuinely wouldn't. I think he's being overvalued a lot right now. I just don't see a world where he's going to be one of the top tackles in the league, going to be a difference maker at the next level. And that concerns me if I'm an NFL GM. This is a guy who's expected to go in the 2nd round, and I just can't get there with it. I just don't see his upside being that at the NFL level. Like I said, he's got the athleticism to play guard. He's played both tackle positions, so he's got some versatility, but he's still very much a work in progress, and I think he's overvalued on the big board right now. At the interior offensive line position, it's Cedric Van Pran, and it's been Cedric Van Pran for a very long time for me. The upside is there with him. The guy's just a immovable object in the middle of your offensive line. That's the best way to describe it. You can't move this guy. He's got a big frame, long arms, big hands. You like that. As a run blocker, he does a decent job of clearing out lanes, but it really comes down to athletic ability. He's not very athletic at the position. I think he's going to struggle there against quicker players like he did at the collegiate level, and I think that's something that does concern me. I think, yeah, the upside, sure, it's there. He could be one of these like Lloyd Cushenberry type players who's just like hard to move, maybe not the best athletes, but I just haven't really fallen in love with Cedric Van Pran the way some people have. He's not too far off from consensus. He's the number 7 on the consensus board. He's number 10 on mine. I think Cedric Van Pran is going to go in the 3rd or 4th round. That's where I think he's valued the best. And we'll see where he ends up going, but I just have questions about how he's going to translate athletically. At the defensive side of the ball, we're going to start off with the edge rusher, and it's Austin Booker. If you guys have followed the channel for a while, you would know Austin Booker has never been a guy that I've really valued. He is the consensus number 10 edge rusher. He is my number 14, and he was number 17 for a very long time. Yeah, the size is there, I guess. I mean, this is a guy, we'll pull up some of the athletic numbers here. This is a guy who's pretty small for the position, I would say. The length is there. He's going to be an outside linebacker. I don't think he's a true 4-3 edge yet. He's 6'4", 240 pounds, so he's a bit undersized for the position. He's very athletically gifted, which is really what it's going to be. He didn't run like you would expect, ran a 4.79, which is very underwhelming. He doesn't play that fast. He's got a super quick first step. He plays with a high motor, but I think it really comes down to size and pass rush moves, which I just don't see from Booker. He does have a nice swim move. He has some moves here and there that I think are pretty solid, but overall, I'm just not buying it with Austin Booker. There was hype around him going in the 3rd round. I don't think he should go until round 5 at the earliest, because I think this is a guy that you're going to try and develop. The upside is there because he's so athletic, because he's got such a great frame that you can continue to build off of. I think he's a perfect outside linebacker, but where does he end up fitting at the next level? I don't really know. I think he's a bit of a 2-year project, has very limited reps. Started his collegiate career at Minnesota where he didn't play, came over to Kansas where he only played 1 season. So I've got a lot of questions there with him, and that's why he's my number 14 and most overrated edge rusher in the class. I think people are sipping the Kool-Aid too much because they're falling in love with the athletic abilities, but there's a lot of concerns I have with him as a player. At the defensive tackle position, it's Michael Hall. Now, he is the consensus number 7 D tackle. He's my number 10. I know it says offensive tackle. Don't pay attention to that. He is the number 7 on the consensus board. He's my number 10. Really, we're going to skip through this one pretty quickly because I don't really think it's a matter of, oh, he's overrated. I just like a few other guys a little bit more. I think Michael Hall, maybe a bit undersized. Maybe he could do a little bit better in run defense, but I think he's got upside as a pass rusher, which I think is exactly what he did at Ohio State. He's very athletic, pretty quick off the line. He's pretty strong as well. I don't really have any complaints with him. I think a couple of guys that maybe are a little bit lower or a little bit higher on my board. That's really what it comes down to. At the linebacker position, it's Edifon Ulofoshio. He's a consensus linebacker 8. He's my linebacker 12. Really unproductive outside of this 1 year. I have questions about his athleticism. Wow. His athleticism, his change of direction ability was a bit spotty at times. Just not a guy that I was really in love with. If you guys go check out the prospect spotlight, I kind of break it down a little bit more on why I wasn't a big fan. He's got good size. He's tall, long arms, which you absolutely love to see. His speed's okay. I think he's a good mover, does a solid job in coverage, but he needs to improve his tackling angles. He had missed tackles at time. His quickness, his change of direction was lacking, and I don't think he's a great pass rusher or blitzer at the next level because he's not the strongest player in the world, so he gets caught up with blockers far too frequently. I think he'll be fine. I think he goes in round 5, but I'm not the highest on him compared to consensus. I'm used to doing rankings here. At the cornerback position, it's Andrew Phillips. I know the consensus has him as number 14. I have him as number 14. So why is he overrated? It's kind of just the public perception of Andrew Phillips, who seems to have all of a sudden boosted himself into first-round consideration. I'm not really talking about the consensus board. I've seen him as the number 2 corner on someone's board. I've seen him as in first-round considerations on some mock drafts, and I don't buy it at all. For one, everyone's going to talk about how he locked up Johnny Wilson at the Senior Bowl. If you watch the tape, that's not what he's doing against bigger receivers. He is getting the ball thrown right over his head every time, and he's getting the ball caught right over his head. On top of that, I don't think he's the greatest athlete in the world. Not the best mover, not the fastest. I think this guy did really good in zone coverage. He read plays well. He could play outside, could play in the slot, so he's a Swiss Army knife there. He's a good and willing run defender, which is another thing I really value about him. But I don't really get the first-round hype. I think he's an early third-round guy, maybe a late second at the earliest. I would consider it, but I don't buy it for 1 second that this guy could go in the first. And now probably my most controversial opinion, save it to last, it's the safety position. Jaden Hicks is a consensus safety 3. I have him as my number 11 safety in the class. I think he's a box safety strictly at the next level. He's going to come down, defend the run. That's what he does well. He gets lost in bites on double moves way more than any other safety I've seen in this class. He gets the ball thrown to him at times. I think that's where a lot of his interceptions have stemmed from. I don't think he's very good in coverage, to be completely honest. I think his size is tremendous at the position, which is something that I think people are going to absolutely love about Jaden Hicks, 6'3", 212 pounds. But he's got broad shoulders. He's a hard hitter, good run defender. He's okay in coverage, but he just seemed to get stuck on the quarterback's eyes, allow big plays over the top. And I think his play recognition and change of direction were lacking. If he would come down in the box and they would pass it and he has to turn back and cover, it was just stiff. It was slower than I would have liked to see. And I think people are overrating Jaden Hicks right now. I think he's going to go in that 3rd, 4th round probably. And I think that's a fine range for him due to his size. I think that he's going to be a very valuable piece. But I'm just not there on Jaden Hicks potentially being the number 1 safety in the class. Top 3, I just can't get there. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Let me know who you guys think are some of the more overrated prospects in this draft class. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.